This is NHK Newsline, I'm Kanako Sakno. The G20 summit has wrapped after a two-day whirlwind of bilateral talks, group sessions and some intense compromising over thorny issues. But Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who chaired the event, lauded members for setting aside differences and tackling the biggest threats to global growth. NHK World's Yoshiyuki Aoki is at the summit venue. Yoshiyuki, what more did Abe have to say?
He said the summit was an opportunity to encourage sustainable growth and to create a future where every country can prosper.
We
were able to clearly reaffirm basic rules for free trade, such as liberalism, fairness, non-discrimination, an open market, and fair conditions for competition.
But the joint declaration stopped short of referring to the need to fight protectionism, which is on the rise in the US and some other G20 countries. It's not the first time their declaration has avoided the issue. Last year, the host of the summit in Buenos Aires said the US demanded the phrase "fight protectionism" be dropped from the statement. Another topic of discussion in Osaka was the digital economy. Abe is promoting a loose set of guidelines to govern the global flow of data and e-commerce. He says it could lead to changes in the way international business is conducted.
We will move quickly to set international rules to ensure the free transnational flow of data while securing safety and privacy. Such an effort will surely bring a fresh breeze into the process of WTO reform.
On the environmental front, Abe says the leaders endorsed a framework to cut back on plastic waste dumped in the ocean. And on the climate change, member nations reaffirmed their commitment to implementing the Paris Agreement, except for the US, which defended its decision to withdraw from the pact. The US says it puts American workers and taxpayers at a disadvantage. At the final news conference, Abe stressed that he tried to find common ground with members instead of highlighting their differences. He also said he expects the next host, Saudi Arabia, to work together to solve the most pressing issues facing the world.
Thank you. That was NHK World's Yoshiyuki Aoki in Osaka. The US and China's relationship is back on track. The leaders of the world's two largest economies reassured the international community on Saturday. As proof of the trade truce, Donald Trump said the two sides will keep talking and that the US will shelve plans to hit China with another set of additional tariffs. Trump also said he intends to continue to ease business restrictions on Huawei technologies.
One of the things I will allow, however, is a lot of people are surprised. We send and we sell to Huawei a tremendous amount of product that goes into the various things that they make. And I said that that's okay, that we will keep selling that product.
The US first put the Chinese tech giant on a blacklist that prevents the firm from doing business with American companies, citing national security reasons. China's state-run media says she urged Trump in the meeting to treat Chinese firms fairly, apparently referring to Huawei. Saturday's face-to-face on the sidelines of the G20 summit marked the first time Trump and Xi met in nearly 7 months. Talks unexpectedly broke down last month, with Washington accusing Beijing of backtracking on critical promises. The two countries are now expected to push forward talks for resolving US complaints about Chinese trade practices, including forced technology transfers and excessive subsidies to state-run firms. For now, the pressure appears to have eased, but some experts say it may take a long time for the two countries to strike a deal, and in the meantime, the trade war could continue to have global economic repercussions. We're now joined by Ryo Sahashi. He's an expert on US-China relations at the University of Tokyo. Thanks for joining us. So the meeting between Trump and Xi was one of the events that got the most attention at the G20 summit. How do you evaluate the outcome?
Yes, the outcome of the summit, including resumption of trade talk and postpone of another tariff, is a big achievement for China and President Xi Jinping. President Trump has even said he would let American company to sell their American product to Huawei. It is American government enlist Huawei and other Chinese firms for Commerce Department entity list to prevent the access to American high-tech products. But President told he would discuss more detail tomorrow or next Tuesday. But it is very surprising President Trump made his intentions open. So of course he still has, existing tariff as a bargaining tip, but he gives so many to President Xi at this timing. So this summit creates a pause for U.S.-China trade war, and China should be very reassured by this outcome.
And why do you think it turned out this way?
U.S. side insists China made concessions, including China assured U.S. to purchase more agriculture products from the U.S. market. But it is insufficient to believe this outcome. So 3 domestic factors are important. First factor is public polls in the United States. Large majority of Democrats, independents, start to be very dislike the tariff idea Trump has imposed on China. And even Republicans start to be very split because, this tariff might hit their daily life and also their job opportunities. Second, many American companies have petitioned White House to be exempted by the list of tariff and export control because their business cannot sustain as it is. And third, American stock market has been very sensitive for this trade talk. In addition, North Korea is another factor. President Xi has visited Pyongyang last week, and President Trump mentioned his intention to come demilitarized zone around Seoul tomorrow. So even though President said he came up with this idea this morning, but I don't believe so, it might impact on his calculation of U.S.-China negotiation.
Now, the friction between the US and China will most likely continue. Now that the summit is over, what do you see happening next?
I believe President Trump will seek to use as much leverage as to force Chinese officials to cut the deal. He will imply another tariff or regulations over China again, right? And he really emphasized deal making, and it could continue toward election 2020. But for me, there are so many groups of people inside Trump administrations who want to be more tough China policy. Right? So they may insist president shouldn't make easy deal with China. For example, Professor Peter Navarro, trade folk inside the administration, very unsatisfied after the summit meeting. And military folk, including U.S. military, are another very unhappy people for this deal making. And U.S. Congress, now very tough on China, may resist against presidential decision, and they may come up with another legislation to tighten presidential decision. In sum, the U.S. has not changed its China policy, and they keep struggling inside the government, and including Congress, on China policy. On China, after this big achievement, they may continue what they have done so far, and asking international society to pray with them, and also asking and intimidating American companies in order to give pressure more on Washington. And Beijing try to buy time. And for that sake, I believe they try to resume trade talk as much as possible. And they try to buy time.
Mr. Sahashi, thank you very much for your insight. And that was our coverage of the G20 summit. That wraps up this edition of NHK Newsline. I'm Kanako Sakno in Tokyo. Thanks very much for joining us.